Welcome to the Tuesday edition of Juan's World from my new apartment and my new kitchen. Here's my new stove. And today I'm not going to do any cooking. I'm just going to take you around my kitchen and talk a little bit about how it's appointed and how I'm setting it up. Now, I'm not fully moved in yet. I moved in on Saturday, but then I discovered there are a lot of things that I don't have, including drawers. There's nowhere to put anything in a drawer. So I'm having to get them from a furniture department store and whatnot. And so I'll just show you a little bit about my kitchen and how I stock it, and then we'll get back to cooking next week. So let's take a tour. Just to give you some idea, here is my kitchen before I moved in. And you can see I have a 2-burner stove and a kitchen sink and a little bit of prep space, but no kitchen drawers. Nowhere to put my oven. If I put the oven on the countertop, as I did in my other apartment, I have no workspace. So I needed to think about getting kitchen drawers. I needed to think about where to put my oven. I needed to think about where I was going to do extra prep. So I went down to a furniture store yesterday and I bought a butcher block top table, and I've moved some furniture around the apartment, and I moved all my things in, including all of my oils and spices and knives and all of the kitchen equipment, pots and pans and everything. And now we'll go to what it looks like today. So we can start with a long-range shot. Here you can see the side of the kitchen, and I've moved a television table over here because I don't want a television. And here I put my oven and my bottled water, which you need for drinking in Cambodia. And you'll see that on the table I've got my cutlery, and down below I've got my dishes and bowls. So let's move around. And now you'll see my stove, which I'll show you working in a minute. It's actually a really nice stove. Only 2 burners, but I'm only one person, so it's not really necessary to have more than 2. 4 would be nice, but I'll deal with 2. And next to it, all my equipment, spatula, ladle, wooden spoon, whisks, spatula, all those kinds of things. My water heater, also very important. My cutting board, always keep my knife. I've got a German high carbon steel knife. And then my oils. And I've got some apples waiting for apple crumble. My sink. And up above, all of my non-perishables, including pasta, rice, oats, barley, flour, sugar, and all of my oils and sauces such as soy sauce, sesame oil, HP sauce, fish sauce, dark and light soy sauce, Worcester sauce, those kinds of things. And then on top of my refrigerator, my spice cabinet, such as it is. When it comes to herbs and spices, there are certain basics that everybody ought to have if they're following my dishes, and which I always have, although it gets pretty difficult in Cambodia or in Asia in general, because there are certain spices and herbs that just are really difficult to find. Like allspice, for example, very, very hard to find. Cloves I can get no problem. Allspice, very difficult, which makes Christmas difficult unless I can find the right place, which I have now found in Phnom Penh. In fact, I've found several sources of herbs and spices. I'm always going to have thyme, rosemary, parsley, sage. Sometimes I'll have marjoram as well, but oregano, always have those just on hand routinely for most of my sauces and some of my soups and whatnot. I'm also going to always have cinnamon, allspice, cloves, nutmeg. And in Asia here, I'm going to have star anise, and usually I'm going to have fresh herbs, mostly sour as it happens, including cilantro, and various forms of mint and basil. They're also going to have 3 or 4 kinds of basil, royal basil, Thai basil. It's a good range here, but you have to pick and choose in the markets and figure out what exactly you're going to use them for. Lemongrass is very common here too. Galangal, fresh turmeric. You have to know what you're going to be cooking if you buy the fresh ones, but dried ones you can keep for a while, but don't keep them forever because they do lose their savor. So, now here you can see a shot of a cookbook that was in fact my first ever cookbook, although not this copy, another copy. It's Robert Carrier's Great Dishes of the World, which my sister gave me for my 20th birthday, along with my first kitchen knife. And she gave me the paperback edition. Now, 20 years ago, when I was 20 years old, that's 49 years ago, almost 50 years ago. And it's been around the globe with me. I took it to the United States, I took it to Argentina, and over the years, using it, because it was the paperback edition, it fell apart. So finally, when I left Argentina to move to China, I told my sister that it was falling apart, and she said, well, I'll send you my copy. It was really nice of her. It's still my prized possession. I still carry it everywhere. I don't use it a whole lot. I do use it a little bit, but I just like it. It's kind of it's the only cookbook I have, and it's a kind of comforting cookbook. And when I open it up, many of the pages are stained with gravy and various things from where she has used them constantly. It's a wonder. Now here is a page that always intrigued me right from the start. It's called the Emergency Shelf. And Robert Carrier says, well, you should always have these things on hand, so if you've gone to the theater or the movies or whatever and you invite friends back to your house, you've always got something to make them, and he gives this list here. And some of it makes sense, some of it makes no sense to me. Like he puts in the other section, truffles. Yeah, well, I don't keep truffles. I don't have that kind of money, nor do I have the opportunity to buy them very often. And he's got turtle soup in a can. Yeah, no thanks. But he does have a lot of useful advice about the emergency shelf, and I have to say that if anybody comes to my apartment at any time of the day or night and they're hungry, I can feed them, because I always have multiple kinds of pasta. I have Japanese udon and buckwheat noodles. I have Chinese rice noodles. I also have Italian pasta. I usually have shells or tagliatelle, linguine, spaghetti, macaroni. I don't just have like one kind, I have multiple kinds. I always have several kinds of rice on hand too: basmati rice, jasmine rice, risotto rice, which is more starchy, short grained than the others. The other two are long grained. Risotto rice is short grained. And I also have other cereals, including barley and oats, although I'm not going to use them on the emergency shelf. I will use them to make scotch broth, apple crumble, oat cakes, who knows. I mean, my emergency shelf is usually just rice and pasta, and then some extras. I used to, in the United States, always have clams and clam broth on hand, because linguine with white clam sauce was always a good standby. You need garlic for that, and parsley, and I always had those things too. But anyway, your emergency shelf has to be what suits your cooking style, and not what suits some sort of bourgeois Francophile chef. Anyway, that's Robert Carrier. So that's a little tour of my new kitchen, and we'll be back to cooking next Tuesday. I have no idea what I'm going to make as yet, but I'll figure it out. And meanwhile, tell your friends about what I'm doing here. Tell them to like and subscribe, and we'll get cooking next Tuesday. See you then.